My name is Edward Garner. I'm a Vietnam War veteran that wants to share this story with all of you. I had the most horrific experience ever in the battlefield, but not from the war itself. I said to myself every day that if I have to go to war, it wouldn't be a problem. It was in 1966, and I was 26 years old with the rank of sergeant. We were going to a search and destroy mission in Phu Bai, and I was in charge of the X-ray squad. The first time I entered to the barracks, I encountered many familiar faces. On the corner, smoking a cigarette, was Private Stratman, known for being a complete asshole. Corporal Wilson was sleeping on his bed. Private Michaels was dominating Private Gray in arm wrestling. We had Private Orton and Private Adams. Both were listening to music. But the place was too quiet. See, I expected a hot welcome from my comrades, but only Wilson stood up and saluted. I gave the instructions for my soldiers. We had to wake up at 0630 and go towards the jungle, so that we could expect ambushes and other serious bullshit. We went deep into the jungle. It was a very cloudy day. Adams thought it would rain or something like that, and I noticed that Gray's face was completely emotionless. So I asked him what was going on. Now, Gray didn't say a word, and his head instead pointed towards a dark cave. I made a finger gesture to Stratman, and he threw a grenade to the cave. And when it exploded, something let out a terrible, painful screech. Gray went to the cave to see what screamed, and the surprise was huge. Nobody was there. There was no dismembered limbs, no blood. The cave was sealed, so it was just an empty hole. I then made another gesture, and then everybody went prone. We expected an ambush, but nothing happened, so we continued our way deeper. I thought we walked around 2 hours or so, but we found nothing. Except the supposed building that we had to destroy. Orton and Adams entered the house and found 4 dead VC soldiers. Curious thing was, though, each body had a slashed chest. For some reason, no one gave importance to this, but I investigated a little more to the wounds that the corpses had. Wounds not made by knives necessarily, but something sharper, like a sword or a hatchet. The weird thing is, no US soldiers, at least the ones in Phu Bai, were carrying hatchets, or anything but SOG knives. Immediately, Michaels began to search for explosives while the rest were outside the house. Michaels didn't find anything, though. We just put explosives to the house, with VC supplies inside and an entrance to a kind of tunnel. Michaels wanted to go inside it, but I said that the hole was not important for us right now, and that he was risking his life for nothing. 20 minutes go by, and we begin to hear another scream a few meters from our position. I tell everyone to cover a flank, and Gray to cover the hole just in case. I walk slowly where I supposedly hear that cry come from. Again, we find nothing, but hear it again from Gray's position. Gray started to shoot frantically to the hole, and he fainted in an inexplicable way. We immediately aimed towards the hole. Stratman carried Gray, and we walked back to the barracks. Not one of us have experienced shell shock or consumed any drugs, so the screams were indeed real. And we felt extremely disturbed. Gray eventually woke up about 10 minutes later. I asked him what happened to him, but he didn't say anything. I personally thought that the kid was just very scared from the start. Wilson asked him what happened, but Gray still said nothing. It was then that Lieutenant Peterson called me to the radio. I informed him about what had happened in the jungle, and that he had more instructions for us. Now, it was just a night watch, and that we'd be taking turns guarding the barracks. But it was around 0000 hours when Michaels woke up from his sleep, went to guard the barracks. The weird thing here is that normally we listen to music when we go to sleep. Except this time the music was interrupted by these sounds and static. I couldn't sleep. Gray whispered something like, "Sorry, guys. I love you. Thanks for looking after me." And Stratman, being a real asshole sometimes, said, "You're welcome, brother." We assumed he had been talking in his sleep. At this point, everybody was sleeping except me. That was when I started to hear a woman crying and screaming on the radio, while static sounded in the background. It scared the shit out of me. Enough to see what was going on outside the barracks. The screaming was louder, and everybody woke up as they saw I wasn't in my bed. But what I saw was horrible, and marked me for the rest of my life. I saw Michaels lying on the ground with his chest open and the word Ray written with his blood on the floor. I watched a strange silhouette far away and attempted to even shoot at it. My squad too started to shoot at the figure until it disappeared into the jungle. Or at least I thought so. We carried the corpse of Michaels inside the barracks. Stratman said that his limbs were completely static when disappearing from our sights, and to our surprise, the woman on the radio stopped crying and was now only sobbing. Around an hour or so later, the woman began to cry and scream much louder than before. This time I paid attention to what the woman was trying to say while screaming. And as the static became louder and more unintelligible, I found out that she was crying something. Like a name. Like Ray or Troy or Gay. But I suddenly hear Gray. Gray. I thought that figure would appear again, and I alerted all of my men. I was the first outside, and I saw the corpse of Gray. No warning, with a wound on his head, telling me that he had committed suicide. I relayed this info back to Lieutenant Peterson, but there was no signal. I just heard interferences with a kind of laughter in the background. After the deaths of Michaels and Gray, and thanks to Orton and Adams, who could give the advice to Peterson, our barracks have been relocated. We never did see that figure again, or at least me and my platoon never did. 2 months later, a sergeant reported that 4 soldiers of his platoon had committed suicide after a night watch. Apparently, they saw the eyes of the creature. And I still don't know if or how Michaels was killed. But I have nightmares about that creature that I can swear I see from the corner of my eyes every night at the window. I just hope it's trauma.